Hello YouTube, it's Blade, and in this video I want to show how you should be currently playing Heart of the Swarm Zerg versus Zerg, because there are quite a few differences whenever it comes to the ZvZ matchup with the new expansion Heart of the Swarm. Well, I say new, it's not as new anymore. But basically, what used to be the build you would shoot for was roach hydralsk and have some infestors, and if it ever went into metagame, then you'd expand off of that. But it started to change a little bit into speedling mutalisk. I'm sorry. It started to change a little bit into speedling mutalisk for a while, and then it went back to the roach hydralsk during Wings of Liberty. But now in Heart of the Swarm, not only did infestors get a nerf, which most people already knew about, but they got nerfed. And then Mutalisk got a huge buff. So now a lot of people tend to believe that going Speedling into Mutalisk is the best to do in Heart of the Swarm. And basically I was hoping that if I moved that drone out there, he would thought that I was moving out instead of trying to build the hatchery, but that didn't fool him. And this guy right here wanted to be a nice big pain in my ass. But basically I was trying to do a 15 hatch right there. And since I noticed that he was going to prevent it, I just went ahead and dropped my pull and my extractor right after, because what I was originally going to do was the 15 hatch, 14 pull, and then 13 extractor. That way I basically have a hatchery up so I can start my expo as soon as possible. And then right after that I can start building my queens and lings to go get map control early on. And you want to get your gas as early as possible for speedlings. And I had to kill off this extractor. If he really wanted to harass me, he could have canceled that extractor even after he had started building it and then kept just harassing me. That would have really pissed me off even more than it did. And one mistake I did right here that you never want to do is I sent my scouting overlord over here and then I forget about him. And I remember about him way too late. So that was my bad. Looking at the units lost tab, I should be losing, yeah, there goes 100 minerals. Basically, you want to send some early lings to try and get map control near his base, so if he ever does move out, you'll know where your enemy is. And you see he put up a spine crawler because he knew I was going to have speedlings. And in ZvZ, spines and spores are much more important than they are in the other two matchups. Not to say that static defense isn't good to have whenever you are Zerg, but they definitely help out a lot more, especially spores, because spore crawlers in Heart of the Swarm got a huge buff of 3 times damage versus biological units, which the only biological air units are Zerg units, like mutalisk. And I actually have some footage of him just completely annihilating some of my mutalisks with only 2 spores. Go ahead and speed this up a little bit more. I dropped my spire down. Basically, when it comes to timings in ZvZ, it's a little bit different than the other matchups, because Protoss and Terran, they'll usually try and stay in their base a lot longer than you will. But in Zerg vs. Zerg, you typically are more aggressive, so the builds can change a lot. So never think that you can just go ahead and look at a build order off the internet and it'll always work for you, because your opponent's going to be just about as aggressive as you are typically. And as you can see, he tried making a mutualist ball right there, but his died out because I had a little bit more and I moved mine back. I moved the ones he was attacking, and then I put him back into the fight. He just simply had them on an attack move command. As you can see right there, that spore crawler just completely annihilated. I think I had 9 mutualisk attacking, and 1 spore crawler took out all of them. So yeah, Spore's got a huge buff in Heart of the Swarm. I try to take a 3rd expo, and soon he's going to be denying that, I think. Or no, this isn't whenever he denied it. But basically, now you see him trying to go into roach hydralsk also. This was what a lot of people did in Wings of Liberty. They went roach hydralsk, and it was very good back then, but it just simply does not cut it anymore. You want to be going speedling mutalisk, using your gas on mutalisk and upgrades, and then using extra minerals on speedlings. And basically, I'm just trying to hold off and play defense while I'm trying to get my economy going back up. And make sure you run away drones if anything like what just happened with the roaches happens to you. You don't want to lose your economy in this kind of matchup, because losing drones is very bad whenever you're in ZvZ. Your economy will plummet quickly. And as you can see, I knew his expo had defense like the spore crawlers on it. And there's not as much defense in the front of his main base, so that's why I went into there instead of attacking the over here. And I also got him to pull drones off the line, which meant that he lost mining time. But as you can see, I'm trying to keep my mutalisks alive as much as possible. That's another key thing about this build, is the mutalisks are your stronger unit. You want to keep them alive as much as you possibly can. Never forget that. And one thing that I regret that I didn't do was spreading my creep. As you can see, my opponent was spreading his creep a little bit. I wish I would have been spreading my creep too. I was just in the midst of that battle, and I felt during the beginning he was doing a lot better than I was. So I wasn't really focused on creep spread. I was more focused on trying to make sure that I didn't die. Which, that's another thing you'll notice in ladder, is that stress does get to you. So if you ever are trying to do a build order and you sort of panic during the attack, don't feel like it's the end of the world, because you can still come back. As you can see, I'm just trying to get my mutalist ball as high as I can, and any spare minerals I get, I try to put them into speedlings whenever I do have the larva. And I should have been doing a better job with that. Speedlings, as you can see, I'm sitting on 1,500 resources, but that's also because I wanted to get an expo and I never could have. And never ball up your overlords if you can. Try to scatter them. I know it's very tempting to ball up your overlords because everybody loves to just put them in a corner and never have to worry about them again. But basically, as you can see, whenever he went for roach hydralsk, I was just winning in the fights, because whenever it comes to roach hydralsk, you usually use your roaches as armor, and you use the hydralsk as more of a attacking unit. Like, you want the roaches there just to soak up damage. But what you do with speedling mutalisk, speedlings surround all the units. That way they're all taking a little bit of damage from the speedlings. And hydralisks typically aren't very good at fighting mass speedling. So if you're able to get a complete surround, you'll be attacking the hydralisks as well as the roaches. And the roaches are only able to attack the speedlings. So if your opponent only has a handful of hydralisks and a big ball of roaches, then your mutalisks are just going to tear him up. But basically, as you can see in this build, speedling muta definitely beats roach hydra. And while you're playing Heart of the Swarm, if you're ever in a ZvZ, just make sure you're going for a speedling mutalist build, or even speedling into baneling and then transferring into another unit such as swarm host, depending on whether or not your opponent went for mutalist. But I'm not trying to say that roach and hydralisk are a bad unit composition now for ZvZ, but I honestly don't think they're as good as they used to be, and trying to break out of the habit of going for them and trying to do new speedling mutalist builds or speedling baneling into higher tech builds may be a lot better for you. And I hope my video helped you out, because I know whenever I play Zerg versus Zerg, that's my most annoying matchup. I absolutely hate playing ZvZ, and out of all the mirror matchups, I honestly think ZvZ is the worst one. But for those of y'all that do need help with Zerg versus Zerg, I hope that this video helped you, and thanks for viewing and watching.